This will be a comprehensive Snapseed guide with every tool and slider explained to master the app. Other than the tools, we'll be covering how masking works and also detailed explanation of how Curves tool works. I have provided the app links for both iOS and Android in the video description. After opening the app, the first thing you notice is this screen. Tap anywhere to open your phone's gallery and select a photo to import into the app. Here I have imported an image. To go into the settings of Snapseed, tap on the three dots menu on the top right corner. Here there is a toggle to enable dark theme, which I will enable for this tutorial. The options in the image size. I suggest choosing Do Not Resize for a maximum resolution. If storage is an issue, you can choose other options. In format and quality options, for a combination of best compatibility and quality, JPEG 100% is recommended. PNG saves in a better quality, but the file sizes would be large. Here's the first menu, Tune Image and its sliders. These are basic sliders to make some quick edits for an image. Swipe vertically to select a particular slider. Now we are in the first slider, that is brightness. Need to swipe horizontally to tune this particular slider. Swiping right increases the overall brightness of the image. Swiping left darkens the image. Next, the contrast. Increasing contrast can make an image look more vibrant and dynamic. This adds more brightness to the lighter parts and makes the darker parts more dark. Decreasing contrast makes the image more flatter. Saturation slider makes the images more or less vibrant. Decreasing it completely turns the image grayscale, or in simple terms, black and white. Ambient slider to the right enhances the overall atmosphere of the image to quickly pop the image. Highlights lightens or darkens the brighter parts of the image. Reducing highlights is useful in getting more details from the brighter parts, for example, the sky in this image. Inversely, shadows lightens or darkens the darker parts of the image. With the warmth slider, orangish tones can be added. Swiping towards left adds bluish tones. Now to the details menu. The two sliders here are structure and sharpening. Structure increases the amount of details in the image. It brings out the texture of objects throughout the photo without affecting the edges of the objects. Sharpening increases the amount of sharpness in the details of the image. Next is curves. I will leave an earlier video of detailed explanation of how curves work from my channel here. I will add a little pop to it and make it a lot more interesting. So the first thing we need to do is add the curves effect by tapping the curves tool. Now to understand how this graph works. On the right hand side and the top part of the graph, it represents the highlights. The left represents the shadows in this image, and everything in between are the midtones. So to lighten a photo, all you would do is grab the middle part of your graph. So this line here, you're just gonna tap here, which creates an anchor point, and drag up to the left. This brightens the image, and drag it right to darken the image. Now we are gonna add some contrast. With the point added in the middle, I will drag the upper part to the left, which brightens the highlights. As this is a curve, dragging any part of the curve also affects the curve on the other part. So here, if you want to remain the shadows unaffected, straighten the curve. But here, as we need to darken the shadows, I will move it down towards right. With this, we have applied contrast with a S curve. Now moving to the color option in the curves. There are three to choose here, the reds, greens and the blues. These curves act a bit different compared to the RGB curves. Here with the red curve selected, if you move it to the left, it adds reds to the whole image. move it to the right, it removes the reds but also boosts the color aqua, which is opposite to the red. Similarly, dragging the green curve towards left adds greens, and dragging it right adds the opposite color magenta. Dragging blue towards left adds blues. Dragging it opposite adds yellows. I will come back to these color tones later. Now for the luminance curve. It acts a little different from the RGB curve. To know the difference, first I will apply some hot contrast using the RGB curve. Now you can notice some added saturation in addition to the contrast. Now with the luminance curve, if I apply the same S contrast, only the luminance values gets affected, saturation remains the same. As I said at the start, Snapseed has one advantage over other mobile apps, and that is masking. So here we are gonna apply this luminance contrast only on some parts of the foreground. So first I will apply this effect, then go to masking, tap on the top right for the stacks icon, then view edits, select the latest effect applied, and then brush. With the effect hidden, also there is an eye icon which you can toggle on where the effect will be applied. So with the brush value at 100, I will brush over the area where this luminance contrast need to be applied. Toggle the eye icon off to see the effect. So we have selectively applied the effect only on a part of this image. Now we are going to add some color tones. To add blue tones to the shadows, that is the darker parts, first add a point around here and then drag the bottom point up. Now you start seeing the blue tones in the shadows. If you want to add yellows to the highlights, drag the upper part of the blue curve towards right, which adds yellows to the brighter areas. In addition to the yellows, we are gonna add some reds to the highlights. So I will drag the upper part of the red curve towards left. Now with both the red and yellow tones to the highlights, it has added a bit of orange tone. Now for some matte look or a faded effect. As the bottom point affects the blacks, when I drag it upwards, the black starts moving towards grey, which gives the image a faded look. Also we'll drag the top point down. Now the whites are turned to grey. So I'll keep the midtones as it is. So with this we have achieved a matte finish to the image. Now for some tricks with the RGB curves. As you know by now, moving the bottom point up makes the blacks grey. The more you move the point, the more it becomes lighter, and eventually the complete image turns white. Same way with the top point, dragging it to the bottom makes the image completely black. Now with both points in the opposite parts, the image turns negative. One more example here of making a major retouch here with curves. I will brighten the image with the RGB curves, add a lot of red and yellow. Then with masking, applying it selectively gives you this major effect. So you can see how powerful the curves tool can be. In the white balance tool now, for a quick balance of colors, you can tap on this auto adjust tool. Regarding the two sliders, temperature adds yellow or blue tones to the image. Tint adds magenta or greens to the image. You can combine both sliders to get interesting tones. There is a manual color picker tool from which you can pick neutral gray, which balances the colors. There are numerous predefined presets for you to choose for cropping, including the free option. To change the orientation of the cropped image, tap this rotate icon. Here in the rotate tool, tap on this icon to rotate the image 90 degrees clockwise. Swipe horizontally to rotate manually. Tap the icon on the left to flip the image. Perspective tool is mainly used to correct distortion like these slanted buildings. The four options here, the fill options and auto correction. You can tilt by swiping vertically or horizontally to correct the distortion. Rotate option, as the name states, rotates when you drag on the image. Scale option stretches the image vertically or horizontally. You can get interesting effects with this. Free tool has 4 corners where you can stretch to correct the distortions. If there are any blank spaces created due to perspective change, there are options to fill it with white, black or smart option, which uses smart intelligence to fill the image. You can use the expand tool to expand the image on all 4 sides or even one. There are filling options white, black or smart fill. Selective filters can be used to precisely select certain areas of the image with similar colors. Point where selection should be and zoom in or out for selection. Swipe vertically to get the options brightness, contrast, saturation and structure. Swipe horizontally to tune with these tools. Add more control points by tapping on the plus icon for more edits. You can tap on any control point for more options. You can copy and paste the control points too. There is an eye icon which hides the control points for a moment while editing. Brush tool has 4 options and you can change the opacity values of the brush at the bottom using the arrows at increments of 5. With the dodge and burn option, you can darken by lowering the brush value below 0 and brushing on the image. Remember, the more you brush, the more effect it shows. You can set the brush value to eraser mode to remove the effect. For brightening, use the positive brush value. Enable the eye icon to preview the brush strokes. There are 3 more options: exposure to increase exposure, Temperature to make parts cooler or warmer tones. Saturation to increase or decrease vibrancy. This can be quite powerful if used with control. Healing tool, as it states, removes any distraction by just tapping on those areas. Just need to brush or tap to remove people and other unwanted distractions. Be careful while using this tool, as sometimes you may get odd results. Vignette can be used to emphasize the subject. Just need to drag the circle at the intended position and resize it accordingly. Then you can darken the outer brightness, which will create a vignette. There is an inner brightness option too. In the text tool, here are the font styles and designs to choose from. Also color options. Double tapping on the text opens the edit box to edit the text. Different styles here. You can change the opacity or invert to get this effect. You can also use masking to get this nice hidden text effect. We'll go into more details regarding masking in my next topic. Here's a more detailed explanation on how masking works in Snapseed. Basically, in general terms, masking is hiding or revealing portions of an edit or filter applied. I'm gonna using this image to show some examples regarding masking. But first I need to apply a filter to this image. We'll try the HDR-scape filter with the nature preset. Gonna increase the saturation. Also the HDR filter strength. As you can see, the image doesn't look good on certain parts, especially the sky. So we'll try to selectively apply the HDR effect only on the buildings here. Now we are going to the major part of masking to do that. Tap on the stacks icon on the top right. In the options below, tap View Edits. Tap the filter we applied now and select the stacks brush. Here's the masking screen. The invert icon in the bottom left turns the filter on or off. The eye in the right is a toggle which gives a visual red mask. This helps in seeing where the effect is brushed out or not. It comes in handy when you are not sure where the masking is being applied. At the center, you can set the brush transparency values at 25 count increments. As I was planning to give the HDR effect only on the buildings with the effect hidden, that is with the filter off, and with the brush value at 100, I'm gonna brush manually on the buildings. Again, toggling the eye icon lets you see where exactly the effect is being applied. Now you can see the full HDR effect on the buildings. Next, I'm going to try to also give some HDR effect to the sky, but full HDR filter doesn't look too good. So with the brush transparency set at 50, brushing on the sky to give it literally 50% of the HDR effect. I will leave the water as it was before. Thing to note that in this case I added the effect after it was hidden initially. Make sure not to toggle the invert button when applying, as it would invert the effect. You can also apply the same effect with the filter applied. So with the invert button on, that is the filter visible, and with the brush transparency set at 0, I'm gonna brush out the effect on water. Won't touch the buildings here. and then with the brush value at 50, applying it in the sky. So you can basically apply the same effect with the filter hidden or applied. This is a personal choice. Now I'm gonna apply some contrast in the Tune Image menu. Then with masking, the filter hidden and the brush transparency set at 100, applying it on only the buildings. Next, I'm gonna try selectively darkening part of the sky. So using curves, dragging the top point lower, also the middle part towards right to darken the overall image. Going to the masking screen, with the effect hidden and brush transparency at 100, applying on the left part of the sky. Zooming out gives you a soft feathered mask. Varying the brush transparency and brushing in the sky to make it more interesting. Next, I'm gonna try cloning the boat with masking. Before that, I'm gonna save the image. Next, with the double exposure tool, selecting the now saved image. As it is the same image added, it doesn't look different here. Increasing the transparency of the image to 100, dragging it so that the boat is moved to the left corner. Making sure to set it at right place by comparing it to the original background. Next, moving to the masking screen of the last edited double exposure filter. Here with the effect hidden, with the value of the brush set at 100, brushing roughly on the part where the boat is located. Then zooming in as much as possible, which gives a hard feather selection, and carefully brushing on the boat to get a precise selection. If you overdo it, you can set the brush value at 0 and brush out the selection. Toggle the eye icon to check if you have made the exact selection. Correct the mask if not. As you can see, we have literally cloned the boat on this image. Masking can also be used to hide text from the image. Here I'm going to try hiding the number on the boat using the lens blur filter. Applying it with default values and making sure the number is blurred. Now with masking, applying it on the number. You can also make it more whiter, using curves, dragging the lower point to the top to make the whole image white. With masking, brushing on top of the number to make it white. Lowering the mask transparency to 50 to make it look better. There are a lot of ways in which you can use tracks brush to give the image a different look. For example, using curves with masking to change the whole ambience of the image, change the colors of part of the image, or use double exposure to manipulate the image. I will leave the links of these edits in the description below, check them out for more ideas. Now coming to the most popular way on how the masking feature is being used, the hidden text. I'm also gonna give a nice trick on how to give it a dual color tone. First, applying the text here, changing the font to make it bigger, naming it on the country this place is located, placing it on the sky with the lower parts little on the buildings. Now going to masking, with the text effect unhidden and the brush transparency at 0, brush out the text on the buildings to give it a hidden text effect. Zooming in as much as possible to give a nice feather selection. This will take a long time, so fast forwarding it. Changing the text color to a bright yellow. To give the text a dual color effect, first I need to duplicate this text filter. Tapping on the stacks icon, view edits. Here in the 3-dot menu, tapping copy. This basically copies all the filters applied. There is no option to copy only the text filter. Now tapping insert, which duplicates all the filters applied. Here I am going to delete all the duplicated filters other than the last text filter. This is the original filter below and the duplicated one on top. For this text, changing the color to something close to reddish color. Going to the masking screen, you can see inverting the filter gives you an interesting effect. But toggling it back, and with the brush transparency at 0, zooming out and erasing the red text around the left to reveal the yellow text below, which gives you a nice dual tone text. These are just some of the ways on how to use masking to selectively apply filters on certain parts, and the possibilities are endless. Now to the filters, starting with HDR-scape. These are the options to replicate high dynamic range photography. There are options to change the filter strength, brightness and saturation to get a controlled HDR effect. Works best on landscape photos, in my opinion. Glamour glow adds a dreamy quality to the image with a soft, glamorous glow. There are few presets here to choose and 3 sliders to tune further. Glow adds softness, saturation adds or removes vibrancy, and warmth for warmer or cooler tones. With tonal contrast, you can have a fine control on contrast across highlights and shadows. Here are the sliders to control the contrast across highlights, midtones and shadows, that is low tones. There are 2 options, protect shadows and protect highlights, which prevents details being lost after contrast is increased on shadows and highlights respectively. Using drama, add dramatic style with artistic effects with these presets. These effects can be controlled with filter strength and saturation sliders. Vintage is one of my favorite filters. It has some cool presets to create film photos of the 50s, 60s and 70s. There are 4 sliders to control brightness, saturation, style strength and also vignette strength. Grainy film filter replicates shooting on a color film with this realistic grain look. Tons of presets here. Also can add more natural looking grain with the grain slider. Style strength decreases or increases the style of the particular preset. Retrolux adds retro style with light leaks, scratches and textures of film styles. Tap on any filter to select the particular style. A shuffle looking icon appears on top. When tapped, randomizes the options further. The sliders to control brightness, contrast, saturation, style strength, add or remove scratches and also light leaks. You can also tap the icon on the left to get random styles. Select Grunge tool to get grungy looking color and textures. There is a texture icon on the right, also a random icon on the left to select a random texture. And there are about 1500 styles to choose from with brightness, contrast and saturation sliders. Texture strength adds or decreases the strength of texture. Black and white filter has quite a few options for different styles of black and white. Also colors to choose from. The chosen color will turn the brightest and opposite the darkest. You can control the brightness, contrast and also add grain for artistic purposes. Noir is a filter to create a darkroom inspired tone for cinematic black and white images. Has a wash slider to simulate an over-processed print. Grain slider to create natural looking grain to the image. Portrait filter is obviously for portraits. This tool automatically detects portraits and has handy filters to smoothen skin, bring clarity to the eyes, and other combo filters to enhance the portraits. Also, options to change the complexion of the portraits. Head pose is another tool for portraits which has a 3D option to change the angle of the face. Can be swiped vertically or horizontally to get the desired look. The sliders to change the pupil size, add smile, and change the focal length. Lens blur filter has a toggle to change between radial and linear blur. The blur affects the outside of the transitional line. Here's an example on how to create a tilt shift effect with a linear blur option. Increasing blur strength to the maximum and reducing the transition gives you this miniature effect. Vignette can be added too. Other shape options here. With masking, you can create some interesting effects like background blur too. Another powerful tool is the double exposure filter. I have an earlier detailed video from my channel which I'm going to share here. Snapseed's developers define double exposure as being inspired from film and digital image processing according to their official description. But there is more to it. We'll try for a detailed explanation here in this video. Other than the default, there are 5 more modes in the double exposure tool: lighten, darken, add, subtract, and overlay. In Snapseed, opening an image with a simple example of a white and black image. Going to the double exposure menu, I'm going to add an inverted image of the same with black on the left and white on the right. Increasing the opacity to 100 blocks the base image completely. Defaulting back to 50% where blend modes gives the best results. Tapping on the options button to get the 5 blend modes. Choosing the lighten mode option. Here the double exposure tool takes only the brighter pixels from both the base and the top images, in this case the white areas. So the result turns completely to white in this example. Darken mode works in a similar way. Taking only the darker areas, in this case the black color, the result is a black image. For the remaining modes, it is better understandable with images having more colors. Opening an image here with different colors. Adding another image using double exposure with more colors. The result of this combination in lighten mode is these bright faded colors. We'll go a bit technical now on how we got this. Later I will try explaining in non-technical terms with some examples. Here I will take the first and third colors from the base and top image and see how we got the resulted bright faded colors. Every color has RGB values. For example, here are the values for the first color. There are color picker apps on mobiles too if you wanna try. Now we'll put the values of each color below. Now we'll take the higher value from these two numbers and paste it here. So this is how we get the final resultant colors for lighten mode. Because of the higher values, the colors also get brighter. The results for the darken mode are a bit similar. Instead of higher values, the results are derived from the lower RGB values. Final output being darker colors. Now to the add mode. Basically, as the name suggests, just need to add both the values, resultant being a very bright color. Note that the final value should not exceed the maximum RGB value of 255. Next to the subtract mode. Here we need to subtract the top image pixels with the corresponding base image pixels. The values are 0 if numbers go to negative. Overlay mode is the final option. Basically, the result is a more contrasty version with vibrant colors of the two corresponding pixels from top and the base image. It sort of combines the multiply and screen modes of Photoshop. Now we'll try some examples. As an example, have taken this color portrait image with a white background. Could get some unpredictable colors with the double exposure modes. Adding a nice vibrant landscape here. As we know by now, choosing the lighten option should remove the portion of the landscape on the white background, as white is the brightest portion here. Darken is basically inverted when compared to the lighten mode. Add mode adds a lot of brightness from both the images. Subtract should make all the darker parts more dark. Overlay certainly gives the best looking one here with nice contrast and colors. Now we are gonna remove all the colors by turning this portrait image to black and white. Should get more predictable colors here. Again using the same landscape image for double exposure. Here there are no more confusing colors from the base image. Using the overlay blend mode and placing the water body of the landscape at a desired place. I'm gonna add one more darker landscape image but with a bright sky. Choosing lighten mode. Going back to the previous filter and removing the mask on the hair. Coming back, masking out the bottom part. Getting some interesting results here. Next for a landscape edit. Opening the same vibrant image from the previous edit. Also adding this already edited sunset image with the double exposure tool. We'll try getting the warm evening colors on the mountains. Masking out the remaining portions. Using curves to darken the image and masking on the foreground to get it darker. Another example of a random abstract looking edit here. It's up to you on how creative you can be. Frames has tons of options to add frames to the image. You can tap the selected filter to get more random frames. Frame width can be altered too. Snapseed supports raw editing of the DNG files. After importing a raw DNG file, you get this extra develop tool. These are the sliders available in the develop menu. Exposure slider adjusts the amount of light in the image. Other than the slides already available from the tune image, there is structure which increases the details in the image. Temperature to adjust between cool blue tones and warm yellow tones. Tint adjusts the balance between green and magenta tones. In the white balance option, you can choose between auto, sunny, cloudy, shade, tungsten, fluorescent and flash. Also there is a color picker to choose neutral gray. Coming to styles, there are different presets which can be time saving. For example, if I select bright, there are already some filters applied as you can see here. You can also add extra edits on top of these and save this look with a desired name. If you want to apply this on another image, just need to import a photo and select the saved style to apply the filter. There is also an option to share a particular style to other users. Tapping on the stacks icon, select QR look and tap create QR look to create a QR code which can be shared with other users. I hope this comprehensive step-by-step guide to Snapseed has been a valuable resource for you on your journey to mastering this powerful photo editing app. Comment down if you have anything extra to be added to this tutorial. Thank you all.